You can start the webinar, Neha.
Good evening, everyone. After an engaging session yesterday on provisions and issues relating to reassessment, we welcome everyone today to the second day of the webinar series on income tax reassessment, an initiative by CASA. A topic for discussion today is practical approach to handle the notices issued under reassessment. Before we begin the deliberations, I would request the founder of CASA, C.A. Sumit Garg sir, to share a few words.
Thank you, Neha ji, for introduction of this webinar. As we all know, yesterday we have started this 3-day specific webinar where we are going to discuss 3 days reassessment process, technical issue, how to reply to all those notices. So this is very important for all of us, and we should learn and maximum participate by way of discussion, posting your queries, so that we can get the maximum benefit of these series. And today we have with us our elder brother CA Prakash Sinha ji. Prakash ji, once again welcome to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Your own platform CASA, and welcome to each participant who regularly join us for the benefit cause of the knowledge. So once again, welcome to each one of you. Now I request Neha ji to take up the further proceeding.
As sir mentioned, our guest speaker today is Advocate C.A. Prakash Sinha, sir, a senior partner at Prakash Sachin and Company. Let me share a little brief about him. In his post-qualification experience spanning 25 years, sir has developed in taxation advisory, litigation, business advisory, management consultancy, covering corporate and commercial matters. His expertise includes FEMA, corporate law, taxation, including international tax and transfer pricing. Sir was a member of the research study group constituted by NIRC on international taxation and WTO matters. He has successfully completed the certificate course on international taxation, transfer pricing, and DISA. Further, he has completed the course of International Fiscal Association Delhi chapter on subject of international taxation and transfer pricing. In spite of such fine accomplishments, he still remains very humble and prefers to call himself a student trying to learn tax law. A very warm welcome, sir. We look forward to an extremely engaging and informative session with you today.
Thank you, Sumit ji, and thank you, Neha ma'am, for introducing me. I have not I have not mailed this type of my profile with Neha ma'am. I don't know from where she has got it here. I'm a student of law, even though I'm a LLB, LLM, practicing the tax law, practicing the other than tax law, constitutional law also in the court. But I am still a student of the law. Why I am a student of the law? Now it is very much important here. If we see the recent trend which is going on in the court here, particularly with the notice of the 148 and 148A, and where the SSE, who has got a favorable order from all the high courts, and when this matter reaches to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court is telling that no, I have to look this matter. I may apply the Article 142 because there can be a loss of more than 1 lakh crore revenue. So therefore, why not to have a win-win situation for the SSE as well as the SSM officer? This gives a very shock to us that whether the Article 142 can be, Article 142 of the Constitution can be used for the purpose of revenue or for in the case of tax matter also. Taking this clue, now the way the litigation is going on, like we have recently seen in the case of Mahagun real estate issue, where the notices which was issued under 148 to a company, which was a non-existent company that was amalgamated with the other company. The Supreme Court has held that the amalgamation does not distinguish a company. It merely subsumed the company, and therefore, and further he says that since the SSC has not informed the department, so it is a different case than the case of the Maruti case, and therefore they have distinguished it with the Maruti case. Point that I'm driving to say that in practical life, in the practical litigations here, we have to appreciate how the law is, what is the object and region of the law is, and how the law has to be complied. Like many of us may be getting the notice of the 148. First, they will get the notice of the 148A, and after that 148A notice, you must have got an opportunity to reply these notices, and after this, whether they have considered this or not, before 31st March or after 31st March, you have got the notice of the 148. Now the situation arises here. Ma'am, I would like that keep this session interactive here, because these are the practical issues that we are trying to discuss, and the more practical cases that we will discuss here, that will be more beneficial to the participating member. And I will request everyone to raise their hand and ask any question on the issue of assessment, reassessment, or everything. That's not a problem. And I will try to give the answer as to the best of my ability. So recently, what I'm seeing that in the recent trend, we have seen that after 1st of April 2021, we have the new provision of the 147, 148, and the 148A, 149, 150, and 148B was also there, and 150, and 149, 150, and 151 also. The notices which were issued under 148A in the month of March or in the month of February, and the SSC which were asked to give the reply in a very hurriedly manner, without giving a ample opportunity to revert, without giving an ample opportunity to submit their document, and the assessing officer arbitrarily, I'm using the word arbitrarily, coming to a conclusion or coming to a satisfaction that there is some escapement of income, is the process that they are adopting. These process are totally ceremonial process, not giving the weightage of the evidences or not giving the any revert on the document which the SSC has submitted. In many of the cases, it has come to us, to our notice, that the assessing officer is issuing the notice on the 25th of March, asking you to furnish the reply by 27th of March or 28th of March, even though you have furnished the reply by 28th of March or before 28th of March. The assessing officer says that SSC has not furnished all the document, and therefore he has the information, he understands that it is a fit case for the purpose of reassessment, and therefore notice under 148 are being issued. Practical cases are that in our own case, in many cases here, in our is very peculiar cases, there was a company or there was an entity that entity was an SPV. The SPV was not required to file any income tax return because the income was assessed in the hands of the constituent entity. we were claiming the income in the hand of the constituent entity as well as the TDS in the hands of the constituent entity. The, the assessment was done of the constituent entity. Suddenly we get a notice from the income tax department that SPV on which you have the 26 years, SPV has received this much of crore rupees and the SSC, the TDS has been deducted and the SSC and the SPV has not filed the income tax return. So why it should not be treated as escapement of income in the hands of the SPV? We replied this type of notices saying that the SPV is not a taxable entity. SPV was a pass-through entity. The income was taxable in the hands of the constituent entity and the tax was TDS was also liable to be deducted liable to be created in the hands of the constituent entity. We gave also the assessment order passed of the constituent entity. We gave also the assessment order passed in the case of the SPV. But department, as predetermined, of working in a ceremonial manner, did not heed to the reply saying that the SSC has failed to submit the reply, and therefore it is a fit case for the purpose of section 140. These type of cases are being now, this is not one of the unique cases. This is one of the cases. There are a lot of chartered accountant I know, lot of advocates I know that they are getting these type of notices under 148. So can we say that the issue under the 148 has become a totally ceremonial? It is symbolic. The assessing officer is not following the law as per the words and spirit of the law. The answer, in my opinion, with a humble one, is totally correct here. Whether I'm audible, Sudesh ji? Okay, thank you, sir. Similarly, there are notices being issued wherein the SSC has been asked to file the reply within a very short time here. Like 25th, you will get a notice. You will be asked to file the reply by 27th. And if you are not able to file the reply on 27th, the assessing officer will pass the order of 148. What the law says? Law says minimum 7 days. Under 148B, 148B, 148AB, it talks about that there should be minimum 7 days, not less than 7 days, not more than 30 days, or it can be extended here. But no. The department are passing the order like in a hurriedly manner, and I can say you this type of order is subject to challenge, subject to writ also, and subject to appeal also. Now the issue arises here. These are the whenever a notice is received by the SSC under 148A, it is imperative that we as a chartered accountant, we should file the reply in a thorough manner. Why is we should file the reply in a thorough manner? Even though the transaction has not been asked in detail, but the reply should be in full detail so that it will able to save you tomorrow when the notice will be challenged here. Like, take a case, I have seen that in many cases, the department has raised the issue of section 68, saying that this much of the credit which has been received in your bank account or received in your books of account is from the unexplained source. So therefore, kindly explain the source of the payer who has paid you. What are the documents that we submit here? We must submit the bank statement saying that this receipt was through the bank, but merely receiving the money through the bank does not make this transaction as a genuine transaction. We can receive any money from the bank here, but in order to make the transaction as genuine, we have to establish that the transaction was genuine, whether this money was on account of sale of goods, sale of services, or it is a loan, or it is a capital account or capital contribution. The moment we will say that it is a loan, then the another duty comes that who is the person who has provided the loan to you. This means we have to disclose the identity of the person. How we can disclose the identity of the person? The person who is giving the loan, their Aadhaar card, their PAN card, or their detail can also be submitted, or their ITR can also be submitted. Their bank statement, whether their bank statement can be given or not is something else. Then the third position arises, the trustworthiness of the creditors. When a person who is giving the loan can be said to be a trustworthiness. What is the parameter of determining the trustworthiness of the person who is giving the loan to me? If a person has given a loan to me, suppose that I have received a 50 lakh rupees from a loan from Mr. A, and prior to giving the loan, he has taken the loan from B. Can I say that is there any doubt in trustworthy? My understanding that A can obtain the money from anywhere else, but the trustworthiness comes not only from the giving of the loan, but from his credibility, yes, that he can pay you the 50 lakh rupees. This means he has something to pay you. He is not a pass-through person. The person, he should not be a pass-through person. He should not be a person like who is acting in between or who is an agent. He must be have the capacity to pay. Whenever I will say that the trustworthiness comes from his capacity to pay 50 lakh rupees or the capacity to give you the loan. And this capacity can be demonstrated by way of n number of document, and his ITR can be one of the document. But his ITR is not only document saying that if suppose that his income is 5 lakh rupees or 3 lakh rupees, but he has certain balances. He has sufficient bank balances, or he has sold some property through which he has got some money, or he has sold some property in earlier years through which he has got the money. Therefore, he is capable of paying this one. So therefore, he can very well pay it here. The point which I'm trying to say that under section 68, in the case of the loan and the loan transaction of the share capital, please try to keep the few of the detail of the shareholder or the lender who has given the money to you, so that you can submit the detail when the department asks all the detail to you. And these details should be, what details should be that this transaction is genuine. First of all, in the case of share capital or in the case of the loan, first thing that we have to satisfy that you needed a loan, you required a loan, you approached to a person, and this person has given the loan to you. The moment you will say that I required a loan, this means you have to state a situation wherein you were in the need of the money, and after this you have approached to this person. This person has done some due diligence about you, and this person has, after this due diligence, he has lended you the money, and this payment is coming through the banking channel. So first of all, that part, by way of establishing this thing, we have come to establish that the transaction was genuine. Merely, as I'm again repeating that, merely having the transaction through the bank account does not certify that this transaction was genuine. Genuineness has to be of the transaction. Genuineness not about that it is coming through the bank account. Genuineness of the transaction that yes, it was exactly a loan. So therefore, if you have the mail ID, if we have the mail correspondence, or if you have any other detail showing or any correspondence saying that I am taking the loan from Mr. A and Mr. A has agreed to give you the loan, therefore we can produce this type of document in order to substantiate that this transaction was a loan document. Further, the loan document may be with interest or may not be with interest. You can say that, yes, I have taken the loan that was without interest. Then the issue arises here. In the normal circumstances, no one will provide you the loan without interest. This means he has certain vested interest in you. So therefore, we have to appreciate that part. They're saying that whether this lender was relative or not here, or he has something, he has a good connection with you, and after that he has thought that okay, I will give the loan without interest. Another situation arises. If he has given the loan, whether have you paid back to him? You have to demonstrate by way of transaction saying that the loan was received. Subsequently, the loan was repaid through the banking channel also. The third thing is that while taking the loan, what we should appreciate whether the person who was giving the loan was trustworthy to, or he has a resources to give this type of loan or not. That is called the creditworthiness. And creditworthiness can be through the n number of things. He return of the income is not only return of the income may or may not assist you for the determining the creditworthiness of the person. Suppose that a farmer is giving a loan. A farmer is a rich farmer. He has a cash or he has a bank account. Yeah, and the income of his income is may not be taxable, so he is not filing any ITR. But if he can very well give you a loan, and the moment he has given them the loan, you have to demonstrate that the person who is giving the loan has the capacity to this one here. So these type of things will come here. I'm talking about a very practical way. I have not started anything on the statute here till now. I will request anyone has question. I can see some in the chat box, some questions are there. If madam can allow to raise any questions, I will be more than happy to reply that part here.
Yes, sir. We have a question. Mr. Sharma has asked that the SSC have transaction of property purchase and sold. Genuinely, there was no capital gain as he bought the property from sale proceeds, but he did not declare the transaction in the ITR. The AO has made the demand under section 144, 147 by adding both the transactions. SSC had filed an appeal in December 19 with all supporting documents. Thereafter, he hasn't received any reply from the department. The case relates to assessment year 12-13. Would appeal be time barred? Consequences in the current scenario.
Look, first, appreciate her. We should appreciate the transaction, what she is narrating here. She is saying that there was an SSC who had sold an asset, and then asset was sold at a price which was more or less the price, the cost of acquisition. So there was not any capital gain. Am I right, ma'am, till now?
Sir, yes.
So there was no virtually a capital gain. So what is the transaction? The transaction was first sale of the immovable property and receipt on account of receipt of the consideration of the immovable property. The issue arises here whether this should have reflected in the ITR or not. The first thing is that you can say that since my income was below the threshold limit, so I was not required to file the ITR, and threshold limit was 2.5 lakhs here. But where there is a long-term capital gain, it is imperative that we should file an ITR, and an ITR showing that these are the long-term capital gain that has there, and since and after this long-term capital gain, these are the sale of the capital asset, and the sale of after the sale of the capital asset, there is no capital gain, so my tax liability is coming to nil. So therefore, taking a stand that I will not file a ITR because my income is lesser than 2.5 lakhs. Rather than taking a stand that I will file an ITR, showing the full detail in the ITR, even though my income comes to lesser than 2.5 lakhs. I feel that the better later option is better because you should have filed the ITR. Now, coming to the situation, after that you are saying that you have received the 147 notices. 147 notices you must have received based on certain AIR information, like you have sold the property, and based on this part, you have received the information. The moment you will say that the assessing officer has developed a reason to believe that there is a income which has escaped assessment, then that gives a another dimension to challenge it. Dimension to challenge it means there can be n number of reasons to challenge the reason to believe. As a practitioner, I'm telling you now first part we have discussed as a SSE part. Now we are discussing the second part as a practitioner part. The moment we receive a notice under 148, we ask the department to please supply we ask our SSE to please file the ITR. The moment they will file the ITR, then we will file an application asking the assessing officer to supply us the reason to believe. Why? What was the reason to believe that has triggered the reassessment, and through which the notice under 148 has been issued for, and through which the AO has assumed the jurisdiction. After this one, after having a reason to believe, we must find out, we must go through the reason to believe and understand whether this reason to believe was a proper reason to believe or not, whether satisfaction was a borrowed satisfaction, whether the approval was taken or not. These type of things that we should analyze. After analyzing these type of things, if we find that we can raise certain objection, we must raise an objection before the assessing officer, saying that what the objection are being raised, saying that the reason to believe is not proper. Why we are saying that reason to believe is not proper? Because the reason to believe should be a proper reason to believe, the satisfaction should be proper, the approval should have been proper, because it is giving a jurisdiction to the assessing officer to reassess it. The jurisdiction to reassessment, if I will come to the basic law, is not in the ordinary course, but it is the extraordinary circumstances. Extraordinary circumstances is that there is certain escapement of the income. If unless there is escapement of the income, there is no reason that can be developed by the assessing officer to trigger the reassessment. So first of all, we have to challenge that there was no escapement of income, and that income was not chargeable to taxation. If we come this transaction of the selling of the house property, this income was chargeable to tax under section 45, although you can say that my profit was not there, so there was no capital gain, and the capital gain was lesser than 2.5 lakhs, so I didn't file this part. But the law does not say like this one. Law says the moment you have a capital gain income, you should file the income tax return, which is because it is a capital gain. Now the issue arises also. Suppose that you have roll over this capital gain to purchase any other property under section, and you want to claim 54, relief under 50. I will also suggest that in order to roll over the capital gain, you must file the ITR showing that you have rolled over under 54. Now, coming back to the reason to believe, please file an objection against this reason to believe if you find it if you find that it is objectionable. After filing the objection of the reason to believe, it is imperative on the part of the assessing officer either to accept it or reject it. The moment he rejects it, the rejection has to be through a speaking order. The rejection cannot be by a summarily order. It has to be a speaking order, and therefore the order should be a speaking order. And after this order, you have the time to challenge this rejection order. So there are two opportunities. First opportunity was there against the region to believe itself. You have the region to believe itself. You could have filed a writ before the High Court. The second challenge comes here against the rejection order. If the SSC has, if the AO has not rejected the your challenge to the region to believe, or your objection to the region to believe, then you have the scope for going for a writ before the High Court. Second thing is that after rejecting this, the SSC as AO should give in ample time so that you can approach to the High Court, and after this, he should proceed to go for the assessment order. So there are lot of opportunity of being heard is there in between here against the region to believe. So as a practitioner, I will suggest you not to miss this type of opportunity to make a writ before the High Court. Now, the assessment order has been passed, and the assessment, after the passing of the assessment order, you are in the assessment process or in the assessment proceeding. It was imperative on the part of the practitioner like us to submit all the detail, to submit complete explanation, or to file in the ITR saying that my income was nil through the ITR, and after submitting and giving a computation of the income that these were the capital gain which was lesser than the 2.5 lakhs. So my capital gain was, so I should not be chargeable to tax. After this detail, after this furnishing all the detail, even if the assessing officer has passed an order, he would have passed the order after giving you a show cause notice. Try to evaluate whatever the region of the show cause notice. Please use this platform of the assessing officer to submit all the detail to the assessing officer. Appearance before the assessing officer or representation before the assessing officer, even though it is a faceless, it is a quite critical. Why I say quite critical? Because it gives the foundation of the subsequent appeal and the litigation. Unless we have submitted all the facts detail, all the facts in thorough detail, it will not good for us to go further here. So please use this opportunity as a platform to provide all the document which you understand that it is necessary for the purpose of assessment. Sometimes some document may be not be called under through the 142 notice. But if you understand that this information is required for the purpose of submitting the reassessment, submitting is essential for the purpose of assessment, kindly submit that. Now, if the, and also please try to go through the 143 notice, 143.2 notice, and also going through the show cause notice under the faceless. Now it is a faceless under the show cause notice. If you have asked for the purpose of the virtual hearing during the assessment stage, please ask. Please ask for the virtual hearing. It may not be a fruitful for you, but it will give an opportunity to you to take the issue or to take the case further. So please note down that whenever you are filing the document before the assessing officer, you please submit all the document before the officer, and also ask an opportunity for a virtual hearing or for the online hearing. These two actions will help you subsequently when you are in the appeal, either before the CIT appeal or at tribunal. Now, when it comes to when the assessment order has been passed, it is always better to prepare an appeal. The appeals, try to prepare the appeal within the timeline. Also, please try to give prepare a detailed statement of fact. A statement of fact should be very precise. It should be precise on the cause of action, on the issue of the notices, or in the issue of the issue that is in the assessment order, on which the region, on what are the region that you are agreed with this impugned order, and try to develop the case law, or you can say that grounds of law based to the point which are or on which you are agreed. I understand that now CIT appeal, lot of appeal is pending before the CIT appeal, and it is taking time. What will happen in the meantime? The department will issue a notice for the payment of the demand of the tax. In order to try to get the stay of the demand of the tax, the department will say that you please pay 20% of the tax so that you will get a stay order. Please note, this 20% is not a sacrosanct. This means that 20% is not a Lakshman Rekha. This 20% is not a mandatory. This you can approach to the assessing officer, saying that this 20% should not be asked from me, because there are regions that why you feel that your case is favorable to you, or you have certain financial hardship. There are a lot of cases on this issue. Mr. Kuni case is the most famous case by the Supreme Court, which says that how to treat this stay or how to proceed with the stay order. So the appeal is something different. Application for the stay order is something different. A stay order is generally prepared based on the issues. What are the issues are there? First issue can be that it is a financial hardship. Second issue is that it is financial hardship can also be clubbed with the COVID hardship. The second issue can be that the prima facie case is in your favor. Third is that the assessment was done, which is a high pitch assessment. Yesterday itself, I have seen one of the instruction which has been issued by the CBDT, where the high pitch assessment are being made on the face test assessment. So these type of ground can be taken. High pitch assessments are earlier there was a 1996 instruction wherein or instruction I can press release through which it was stated that the high pitch assessment are those assessment where the assessed income are more than twice of the returned income. So this type of ground can be taken before the assessing officer, saying that this 20% should not be imposed upon you, and the 20% can be reduced. Try to get the reduce of 20%. If the assessing officer does not agree, there is you can further take up to this point before the Commissioner of Income Tax, administrative side, not appellate side, Commissioner of Income Tax, appeal administrative side, and you raise also this point. However, one more concern that you should raise here, before the CIT appeal, a stay of demand should be raised. A stay of demand should be done here. How the stay of demand should be raised here before the CIT appeal? Make an appeal before the CIT, saying that the demand should be stayed. In maximum cases, the CIT appeal does not pass a separate order on the stay application. It is totally bad. It is a bad law here. We have challenged this type of things in the court here. It is imperative on the part of the CIT appeal to pass a judgment, to pass a speaking order on the stay application. And most probably, the issue is that the power, when you go to the power of the CIT appeal, it says that CIT appeal can reduce the demand, CIT appeal can confirm the demand, CIT appeal can enhance the demand, or CIT appeal can annul the assessment order. These type of power are there. How he can reduce the demand without giving the stay? So therefore, the power of the stay is inbuilt into the power of the CIT appeal. There is an inbuilt power in the CIT appeal, and the CIT appeal must exercise this power. Unfortunately, the CIT appeal does not exercise this power, and after that, the AO disturbs you, saying that please pay me 20% of the tax demand. This is a bad precedent. I will tell you, this is not a law. But if you want to fight, we are fighting. We have got the favorable order saying that the CIT appeal should pass the stay order. And one more important thing, the CIT, when the power has been given by the statute to the CIT appeal, how then assessing officer can usurp the power of the CIT appeal to say that, okay, you pay me 20%, then I will give the stay. The 20% stay is coming from the administrative order to the assessing officer. How the CBDT can ask the CIT assessing officer to, yes, you take 20% and give the stay, where the stay is with stay power with the CIT appeal. This is the bad precedent. And I know that it should be challenged, but we have consciously not challenged, because in many cases, I have seen the assessing officer has taken 20% and after this has given the stay of the demand. Otherwise, what will happen if we challenge this instruction number 1899? I feel that on 29th of February 2016, because it was a 2016 when it was a leap year, the instruction was issued on the last date of the February, and that is the 29th of February 16 and subsequent 1899 instruction number. In that case, it was stated that the AO can issue the stay order by receiving or by payment of the tax liability or tax of 25 to 20% of the outstanding demand here. So that instruction is not a mandate instruction. That instruction, 20% is a maximum side, 20% is not a minimum side, 20% should not be used in all the cases that is there. And you can also see when the matter goes to the ITAT, as per the statute, it says that the SSC should have paid the 20% of the tax demand. So therefore, the maximum demand is 20%. The AO can give you demand stay order without asking for the 20%. So these are the things which, as a practitioner, we should appreciate how to do all these things here. And I feel that the question which was raised, yes, it is the appeal issue, and let argue with when you are arguing with in the appeal, please argue with the full fact here, saying that how much your capital, how much your cost of acquisition was there, how much your sale proceeds were there, and to try to answer that part. Hope, Neha ma'am, I'm able to clear the doubt of my participating colleagues here.
Yes, sir. They just had one more point to the doubt, that when would the appeal be time barred, which is there in front of CIT?
Appeal is not time barred. Appeal, I will tell you. You have to file the appeal within 30 days of the receipt of the interim assessment order. The CIT appeal has the sufficient time to decide on the matters. The law, in my opinion, the law does not give a upper time limit to the CIT appeal that is mandatory in nature. It says that the CIT appeal should pass the order within this much of time. That passing is the directional one. It is not a mandatory one. Please try to appreciate this one. So, appeal should be done within the 30 days. After the appeal has been done within the 30 days, the time period with the CIT appeal starts. The CIT appeal can take its own time to pass the order. The timeline which has been given under this section is a directional one, is not a mandatory one. And please appreciate this type of permission. He is an appellate body. The appellate body cannot be compelled by the CBDT or by the statute that the order must be passed before this time limit. It is not a DRP cases. DRP, in the case of DRP, you have a certain time limit that within 9 months you have to file, because it is not an appellate body, it is a reference body. But in the case of appellate body, you know that under section 119, lot of instructions which are issued under the 119 does not apply to the appellate body CIT appeal also. The CIT appeal is not applied under the instruction which is issued under 119. You will see that there is a last carve out. We say that instruction issued under this one that will not apply to the CIT appeal, who is functioning as an appellate body. So therefore, it cannot be said that what should be the upper time limit for the appellate body to pass the order. Any question, ma'am?
Yes, sir. We have another question, which says that the SSC had purchased a property worth 30 lakh, whereas the circle rate was 1 crore. A department issued a 148A on this issue. What can be the likely consequences?
Very much important part. Apply the first principle itself. Don't go into jump into the statute. I will jump into the statute subsequently. I am keeping the books. I will first principle itself. The circle rate is 1 crore. You have purchased in 30 lakh rupees. How it is possible in a normal course of circumstances? Who will sell you a property of 1 crore rupees on the 30 lakh rupees? Tell me one reason. Is it a normal transaction or it is a not normal transaction? Mr. Sudeshji is taking that it was a disputed land. Then if it is a disputed land, then you should challenge the circle rate itself, saying that the circle rate of 1 crore is no more applicable to the given land. And if you have challenged the circle rate on the disputed land, there is a carve out under section, under section 50, there will be carve out, saying that the fair market value of the property or the circle of the fair market value property, when the fair market value of the property itself has been challenged, then that will not apply. So first of all, apply the first principle itself. If on the first principle, we can see that now here someone has, I can see some participant is raising the issue. What region should be disputed land that he has taken? So the point is that, ma'am, that I'm trying to say, if the land is disputed, please try to raise the dispute on the circle rate itself, saying that this circle rate does not apply to this particular plot of land, saying because this plot of land was a disputed land and this circle rate was not sufficient, and get the circle rate revised for this particular land here, rather than paying this lower than the circle rate. And you have also right now 20% bracket is there right now. So 20% apply to use this 20% bracket itself.
So there's another query which really doesn't relate to reassessment, but to stay of demand. Would you like to take that?
Yes, why not?
So Asha ma'am wants to know that what probable reasons can be given stay of demand application other than financial crunch if we have a strong reason to believe that the demand should be stayed.
Look, the application for stay of demand is different than the appeal. First of all, you should know this. The appeal is on the legal issue, but whereas the stay of demand is something different, which is administrative issue. When you are raising an application for the stay of demand, the first line should be that why this order of assessment is not acceptable to you. It can be high pitch assessment. It can be assessment which is bad in law per se. So therefore, you should raise first point that this assessment is there. Second point that you should raise that you are into the appeal. You have already challenged this assessment order. Unless you have challenged the assessment order, you cannot file an stay application. So please file the appeal before filing the stay application. When you have filed the appeal before filing the stay application, raise the issue of that it is a high pitch assessment. Second, prime facie order is in your prime facie order will not sustain because you have the sufficient evidence with you, you have the sufficient document with you, which you have not been able to submit either to the assessing officer, or the assessing officer has passed a perverse order not appreciating a document which he should appreciate. The perversity comes when he has not appreciated the issue in the document, or when he has appreciated the issue which is not relevant for the purpose of assessment, when he has unappropriately appreciated the issue. So these are the issues which will make the order perverse, and the moment it is order is perverse, you can raise the issue that the order is arbitrary, the demand has been arbitrarily created, and therefore the assessment order will not sustain. And in such a view, the 20% demand or 20% of the payment of the tax for the giving the stay should not apply in your the given case, and you can apply for a without payment of tax or the lowest payment of tax. I know that assessing officer will not agree to point here. Sometimes if the assessing officer is good enough, he will say that okay, please pay 15% or 10%. But 99.99% of the assessing officer will not agree with this point here. But after this, you have the opportunity to raise this issue before the Principal Commissioner of Income Tax. You can raise the issue before the Principal Commissioner of Income Tax. And if he also does not agree that okay, you have to pay that 20% demand, then you have the option to go for a writ. And in the writ, you can plead all this issue. This writ is separate than the writ which you have filed against the assessment order. This writ is separate of the writ which you have filed against the region to believe. This writ will be separate here. This writ, the cause of action. In this, the cause of action is not giving you the stay of demand by paying the lower amount of tax. So this cause of action itself seems to be arbitrarily, and the moment it's arbitrarily, it is violation of the Article 14, and therefore you can file a writ. And if the High Court can, and you can also raise this point that you have raised the stay application before the CIT appeal, and the CIT appeal has not passed this stay order. So therefore, what will happen? The High Court can also direct the CIT appeal to pass an stay order. So these type of things can be done here. Any question, ma'am?
Thank you, sir. One more question that we received. That the notice under section 148 was received on 25th of June 2021. That was for assessment year 14-15.
Just hold on, I have to note down. It was assessment year 14-15.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It was received on 25th of June 2021.
25th of June. 25th of June.
Sir, 25th of June 2021.
21. Okay.
And it is mentioned in the query that the notice was without any information or reasons to believe.
I cannot properly listen you the third line, ma'am.
It is also mentioned in the query that the notice was without any information or reasons to believe.
Okay.
How can we reply to such a notice?
Very good. Very good. First of all, the assessment year 14-15 was there. Find out, first thing that we should appreciate, whether the return was filed in the 14-15. If yes, please checklist this part here. Yes, return was filed. Then check it whether the return was filed, whether the return was assessed under 143.1 or 143.3. Find out whether the 143.1 or 143.3. Then, if the return was 1415, the 6-year period is expiring on 31st of March 2021. First of all, this period was there. 31st of March 2021 was the last date of the period. But as we know, due to COVID period, there was a 1-year extension was given. And also the notices which was there. And up to 31st March 2021, the notices should have been received by you. In this case, you have received the notices on the 25th of June 2021. Find out that this is the date of issue. If it is the date of issue is 25th June 2021, please see this whether the notice is time barred or not. If the notice is time barred and the notice has been issued under 148, because we know that from the 1st of April 2021, the new law has come and where the notice has to be issued under 148A, not under the 148. And there was a notice that has to be issued under 148A prior to issuance of the notice under 148. So first what find out on the 25th June 2021, because this was the assessing officer has the power to issue the notice on. We know that as on 31st of March 2021, when the old law was repealed and the new law came into existence, there was 2 notifications which were issued. Notification number 20/2021 and notification number 38/2021. Both these notifications and the explanation of the notification was challenged before the Civil High Court. And High Court has held that as on date, what the decision is there. I'm not forecasting what will happen in the Supreme Court. As on date, the law is that the notice which was issued post 1st April 2021, not complying the existing law of 148A, is bad in law and has been quashed. Take a shelter of that type of notices, take the shelter of that law, and ask the assessing officer to drop the proceeding under the section 148, saying that the High Court has quashed all the notices which were issued post 1st April 2021 under the old provision of the 148, and therefore these notices are not valid. First line of arguments say like this one. Second option can be that if you wish, you can also file a writ before the High Court saying that these notices which were issued for 1st April 2021, these notices should be thrashed or should be quashed. As of now, what I have learned that since this matter is pending before the appeal before the Supreme Court, High Court is not deciding on this type of matter after the Manmohan Kohli case here, particularly Delhi High Court is not deciding. They have passed several orders, but nowadays they are holding the writ and giving the date on the writ. Third thing should be that the question which was raised, that reason to believe didn't came with the notices. The answer is that the reason to believe does not come with the notices. Reason to believe, in order to get the reason to believe, please appreciate the case of the GK and Driveshaft 259 ITR 19, which says that in order to file the reason to believe, you must file and return under section in pursuance of the notice under 148. So when you have filed the return in pursuance of notice under 148, then only you are entitled for the asking for the reason to believe. Please ask the reason to believe and obtain the reason to believe. And if that after filing of the reason to believe, you don't get the reason to believe, then it will also a cause of action, saying that your assessment should be invalid because or bad in law because you have not been given an opportunity to appeal before the High Court. You have missed the opportunity because the AO has not provided you the reason to believe. So once you have filed the ITR and you have asked for the reason to believe, it is imperative on the part of the assessing officer to issue the reason to believe to you. I hope I'm clear, ma'am.
Yes, sir. We can continue.
Any question? Next question. Hello.
Get done with the questions in the chat box. Okay, so we have another question. How do we file an ITR after we receive a notice under Section 148?
Through the software, please file the ITR and just mention notice under 148. Nothing, no rocket science. As you have filed the earlier notice, earlier return under 139.1, it is the same return. It is the same return that you are filing under the 148. Yes, there are different law. Law is that once you have filed a return under 139, and after that return has been filed under the 148, the subsequent return will be the final return, which will be valid for the purpose of assessment. So please take up that return and please file that return thoroughly, and that return will be subject to assessment.
So the next query we have is that before applying for license to believe, can we ask for the approval letter, and what is the procedure and what should we mention in such a letter?
The moment you have received 148 notice, please file a ITR. First of all, please file an ITR. After filing the ITR, please make an application to the assessing officer saying that in pursuance of the notice under 148, you have filed the ITR and the acknowledgement number of the ITR is like this one. Second point that you should make, that since this notice has been issued under 148, please share the reason to believe and its approval also. So therefore, by way of letter, you can ask these type of things. Once you have asked this type of things, it is imperative on the part of the assessing officer to issue the reason to believe to you. Any question? Next. Madam, I'm not able to hear you. Kindly keep your mic here.
Sir, you can continue. We don't have any unanswered questions.
Okay, no issue here. One question that I'm seeing, can we challenge jurisdiction?
Can we challenge the jurisdiction under Section 127?
Just hold on. There is a jurisdiction, and 127 is talking about the territorial jurisdiction. Territorial jurisdiction of the assessing officer. Territorial jurisdiction under the assessing officer, if you have appeared before the assessing officer, you can challenge this part here. But the department has the section 292BB, which says that when you have appeared before assessing officer, or when you have just go through the section 292BB, you will find that what are the law there is 292BB. Notice deemed to be valid in certain circumstances. It says that where an assessee has appeared in any proceeding or cooperated in any inquiry relating to the assessment or reassessment, it shall be deemed that any notice under this provision of this Act, which is required to be served upon him, has been duly served upon him in time in accordance with the provision of this Act, and such assessee shall be precluded from taking any objection in any proceeding or inquiry under this Act that the notice was not served upon time, not served upon him in time, not served upon him or in a improper, or not served upon him, served upon him in an improper manner, provided that nothing contained in section shall apply where the assessee has raised the objection before the completion of such assessment or reassessment. These are the very clear law. So, if you understand that the notice has been issued by an assessing officer, which is not your assessing officer. However, please mind this 127 may not apply, particularly at the time of faceless assessment, because during the faceless assessment, 127 may become diluted. Okay, the first thing that you should do, if you feel that this assessing officer has not your assessing officer, write a letter to the assessing officer saying that you are assessed under a assessing officer by this ward or circle number this ward. Your assessment, your PAN is with this ward. Your assessing officer is this ward. Therefore, this notice which has been issued to you is not from a proper assessing officer, and therefore this proceeding should be dropped. The moment you take an objection before the assessing officer, this means you have tried to take an exclusion clause from the 292BB. The moment you have taken the 292BB double exclusion clause, you have kept you safe here. And tomorrow, even though assessing officer proceeds to make an assessment, subsequently in the court of law, you can say that you have taken the objection and the 292BB does not apply upon you. The assessing officer has no jurisdiction, no territorial jurisdiction to assess you. This is the one point of that. But the most important part is that the jurisdiction to assess, which is coming under 290, under section from the region to believe. The region to believe provides or triggers the jurisdiction to the assessing officer to reassess you. This region to believe is sine qua non, and for an 147 and 148 proceedings. This means the reason to believe has to be in the form of satisfaction by the assessing officer, and this satisfaction should be in writing. Try to find out whether the assessing officer has got a new material to state that you have certain income which has escaped assessment. If the assessing officer has no new material, then there can be a situation the assessing officer is forming a different opinion on the old material itself, no new material has come. If the assessing officer is forming a different opinion on the old fact, then it is a revision, or it is a revision of the assessment order. And please mind it, in the Income Tax Act, the assessing officer has no power to revision. It has the power to revision only to the extent of 154, which says that you can rectify the order where there is a mistake which is apparent from the record. So please appreciate there is a difference between revision and rectification. The revision power is only with the section 263 and 264 before the commissioner, and the 263 can be exercised by the commissioner only in the one cases when the order is erroneous and prejudicial to the interest of the revenue. So only the limited power of revision has been given. In the recent case of the Supreme Court, in the case of the Reliance, it was stated that the ITT also does not have the power to revise its order. ITT can recall the order for the purpose of rectifying any mistake which is apparent from the record. But in the guise of the rectification, you cannot revise the order. The moment you try to revise the order, you are sitting on the appellate position of your own order, which is impermissible. The moment you will apply the revision, this means revision is not envisaged in the Income Tax Act by the assessing officer. Assessing officer cannot revise. So therefore, follow the Kelvinator case of the Supreme Court in the case of the Singh, where the assessing officer tried to form a different opinion on the same set of facts. So therefore, it is a revision, and there cannot be reassessment. Please appreciate that reassessment is a thing where you have to state that the income has escaped. So before proceeding under 147, the sine qua non is that there should be some income which has escaped to the assessment. If the income has escaped assessment, you can do the reassessment. But the income was there. The AO has not assessed it, or has formed a different opinion, then you cannot reassess it. So there are two things very much important. This was after the filing of the income tax return, if the assessment has taken place, whether any new set of fact which has come to the knowledge of the assessing officer to understand that, look, certain income was there which has escaped the assessment. If the certain income it was not escaped the income, therefore it cannot be subject to reassessment. In order to understand what is the escapement was there, the income was there, but it has escaped. If the income was itself not there, it cannot escape. Second thing, that if the income was there, you understand that this income is not taxable on that time. Subsequently, you say, no, this income is taxable, and now I will say that this income is escapement. The law does not permit you, because you have formed one opinion that saying that this income is not taxable. The moment you have formed an opinion, subsequently you cannot change your opinion. Subsequently you change. So there is a difference between revision and the reassessment. And even if in the Income Tax Act, even if after the 2021 amendment, the basic law remains the same, the revision power has not been given to the assessing officer. Only the power has been given. What the power has been given, earlier there was a reason to believe. Now it says that you have information which suggests that certain income has escaped the assessment. The point that we have to understand, what is the region, what is the information which suggests that the certain income has escaped assessment. And for this purpose, you have the section 148, which says that in the following cases, these are the deemed cases will be treated, that these are the income which has escaped assessment. So the proviso clause of the 148 will say that these are the cases where you will be deemed that the income has escaped assessment. So there are a lot of finer points are there. I will appreciate that. Please understand the law thoroughly in order to litigate these points here.
Thank you, sir. So there is a general query where the participant is
Please keep your mic.
Merger of lot of banks. Some banks are not providing bank statements for the historic period. Can the assessee in this case file an ITR on the basis of whatever information they have with them?
First of all, what I had done in these similar cases here, I have written to the bank saying that please provide me the bank statement here, and I have kept the copy of the such letter, acknowledged copy of the such letter with myself. In order to substantiate that, I have approached to the bank, and the bank has not been able to provide me the bank statement. The second thing is that I have to also state that the bank statement is not with me. It is more than 5 years or more than this May. I am not able to trace the bank statement. Based on this part, please file the bank statement. Please file the ITR. It may happen that in the first assessment, the assessing officer raised this point. Please write to the assessing officer saying that you have approached to the bank, or saying that, and you have the sufficient evidence that you have approached to the bank. You have not received the statement from the bank. So, to the extent of not getting the bank statement, there can be some error in your return. First point is that. Second point, what we have done here also, that we have requested the department that under certain situation, why not the notice under 133.626 to be issued to the bank, and if the bank is also failure to pay the bank statement, then we also have pleaded the impossibility in the performance, saying that I'm unable to get this document. These are the few arguments that can be taken here, but it will depend upon case to case here, how to proceed with this part here. I'm recently talking about one of my personal experience. In one of the cases, SSC was not able to get certain document from one of the department. Then SSC applied RTI application. We used the RTI, and through the RTI we got the information, and we, before the tribunal, we stated that this fact is not readily information with me because I don't have the copy of this one, but I have applied for the RTI application, and please kindly wait for this one. And after a certain period, we got the reply of the RTI. We submitted the reply of the RTI before the ITAT, saying that these are the documents which was there. RTI assessing the department or ITAT was pleased to accept the RTI outcome. So, as an practicing person, we must not hesitate to obtain any information from any different source. I'm not sure whether the bank will be able to provide you the bank statement through the RTI mode or not. But yes, you can try this part here, where the bank can provide you the application through the bank statement. But I'm not sure because the bank may not provide you the bank statement through the RTI. Any other question, ma'am?
There is one more question with respect to jurisdiction only. Can we ask for reasons to believe subject to section 127 objections?
Madam, your again voice is not clear.
Sir, in respect of jurisdiction, there is another query. Can we ask for reason to believe subject to section 127 objections?
Yes, you can very well ask. You can very well ask, and after that you can very well raise all these objections.
Sir, probably you can continue there. No more queries.
Okay, no problem. I was on the point of the issue of the handling the 148 notices. What I do, practically speaking, the reason to believe is one of the critical and most critical document for the purpose of challenging any assessment order. And when we challenge the reason to believe through an assessment order, we find that you will find there may be some infirmity in the reason to believe. There are a lot of infirmity, like whether the earlier assessment has taken place under 143.3, whether the earlier assessment has been taken place under 143.3.1, what happens in the case of the 143.3 assessment, earlier 143.3 assessment, whether these things was asked earlier whether the SSC has replied to you earlier, because you please kindly note down, under the old provision of the 147, there was a proviso clause was there. First proviso was there. The first proviso used to state that in the case where the earlier assessment has taken place under section 147 or under 143.3, the assessing officer can can proceed for the reassessment after a period of 4 years from the date of from the end of the assessment year, only in case or where there is a failure on the part of the SSC, or there is a failure on the part of the SSC first to reply the notice under 142.1, to file the return under 148, to file the to reply the notice under 143.2, or fourth, the truly and fully disclose all the material fact necessary for the assessment. So very much important point. If unless there is a full default or unless the full failure on the part of the SSC, and this failure has been sufficiently demonstrated in the region to believe, and or this allegation should be there in the region to believe, then only can the assessing officer can assume the jurisdiction under 148. So first point is that please appreciate 148, the before assumption of jurisdiction, one thing should be noted: what was the done in the original assessment, whether the original assessment 143 one was filed, or one has happened, whether the 143.3 has happened, whether the reply to the notice was given, whether all the points was discussed in the assessment order, or whether all the point was asked in this part here. If all these things has done earlier, then we can take the shelter that it is a mere change of opinion. So therefore, try to appreciate the reassessment is different than the revision. The revision, there is no power of revision to the assessing officer. Only power to the assessing officer is rectification. Rectification is also a revision, but only to the extent it is a mistake which is apparent from the record. The moment you try to revise your own order, you sit as a appellate body of your own order, which is not permissible under the law. Which is not permissible under the law. This is the first point which I wanted to say. Recently, I am seeing a lot of notices under 148, 148, and particularly the notices which are after the year, after 3 years. As we know that under the new provision, the notices can be issued up to 10 years. The notices, when the notices can be issued up to 10 years, there is a two time frame, up to 3 years and up to 10 years. First of that, up to 3 years notice can be issued by the sanctioning of the some junior level, like Commissioner of Income Tax, and where the income which is escaped assessment is not more than 50 lakh rupees. So if it is not more than 50 lakh rupees, the income can be assessment can be reopened, and it can be reopened prior to 3 years also, or within the period of 3 years. But the moment after it is 3 years, then the different set of law apply. So make it change prior to 3 years and after 3 years. Prior to 3 years, it says that the assessing officer should have the information suggesting that the income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. That's the line here. And if you go to the new act here, I'm coming to the 148, and 148 talks about it. Just see that what the 148 says here. It says that 148 proviso clause. The no notice under this section shall be issued unless there is a information with the assessing officer which suggests that the income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment in the case of the relevant assessment year. That's only line. First of all, we have to find out what are the information is with the assessing officer. Whether this information suggests this that the income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. So primary focus should be not on the quantity of the assessment as information, but on the quality of the information. What quality of the information? Whether this quality information should suggest. So what is the meaning of the term suggest? Whether it can be any remote linkage can be there, or whether this linkage or nexus has to be a live nexus or bright nexus. That can also be argued. So this law says up to the 3 years. But when we come to the section 149 and when we read the 149 and let the read the 149, it says that I'm reading the 149. It says that no notice under 148 shall be issued for the relevant assessment year. First, if 3 years has elapsed from the end of the relevant assessment year, unless the case falls under the clause B. So prior to 3 years, it can be opened based on the information which is there. After 3 years, the case is difficult. Let's see what is the case is difficult. If 3 years, but not more than 10 years. So the lower limit is 3 years, upper limit is 10 years, have elapsed from the end of the relevant assessment year, unless, now it is very much, unless the assessing officer is in possession. Very much important. In the original 148, it was said that assessing officer has information which suggests that the income chargeable to tax has escaped assessment. Here the lining is something different. It says that income tax officer or the assessing officer has in possession. The possession is very much particular. This means he should physically possess this information. He possesses books of account. It does not say information, but it says books of account. Other document. It does not say information. The term information is different. The term document is something different. It says that document. The document should be a credible document or evidence. Very much important. In the first proviso 148, there is nothing discussion on the evidence. It was discussion on the information. The term information can be something else. Like if you go to the income tax officer and he show that Prakash Sinha or Neha man has 10 crore rupees in her residence. He may have this information, but this information is just like a hearsay. But after this, he has to verify certain information. Yes, he has to verify certain information. So there's a difference between information and the evidences. There's a difference between information and document. There's a difference in information and the books of account. After the 3 years time here, it says that there should be possession of the books of account, other document or evidences, very much important evidences, which reveals. The point is that which reveals. In the case of the 148, we say that we suggest. No, it does not say यहाँ पर suggest नहीं word नहीं बोला गया. यहाँ बोला गया reveals. What is the mean by reveals? Books of account or other document. What is the books of account? Which reveals that the income chargeable to tax represented in the form of an asset, an expenditure in respect of transactions or in relation to an event or occasion, and in an entry in the or entries in the books of account which has escaped assessment amounts to or likely to amounts to rupees 50 lakh or rupees more of this one. And the escaped assessment amounts to or likely to amounts to rupees 50 lakh rupees or more. So therefore, there should be three things that is there. After 3 years, the case becomes difficult. After 3 years, what is the case? He should have the he should in possession. What he should possession? The books of account. He should be in the possession the document. He should be in the possession of the evidence, and not simplicity evidence, which reveals. This means that in the information should have the potential to disclose that certain income has not been assessed. So there is a difference between 148 and 148, 148. We suggest that information, we suggest that which information, we suggest that the information suggesting that income chargeable to tax and escape assessment. 149, when you come to the 149, it gives a tighter rule which says that evidences, which states the books of account, which talks about the assessment part. That should be in the possession of the assessing officer. Very much a critical point out there. Now I'm coming to the read part also. Let's discuss something about the read part. We know that recently High Court has quashed all the notices which was issued under the erstwhile provision of the 148 post 1st April 2021 up to 30 June 2021, saying that when the law has already changed by way of notification, the scope or by way of explanation, the law cannot be brought back into the statute to issue the notice. So that when the law up to after 1/4 2021, when the law itself was not there, then the subordinate law, which is the notification, cannot be sustained because the notification was issued under the 148. When the law itself has changed, the notification cannot be sustained. And when the notification cannot be sustained, the explanation of in the notification number 20 of 2021 and 38 of 2021 is no more valid. And therefore, all the notices which are issued post 1st April 2021 up to 30 June 2021 was no more valid, and this High Court has passed the assessment. This is the issue of the quashing of the assessment. We can also raise the quashing of the assessment through the writ when the procedure which has been prescribed under 148A has not been followed. Like the opportunity which assessing should have got, they have not received this much opportunity. Then the 140, then we can say that the procedure has not been followed. The moment these are the issues that where we can go for the High Court in against the notices or against the 148 proceeding. Another important point is that after receipt of the notice, what we should do, as I explained earlier, and with the cost of repetition, again I'm explaining. After the receiving of the 148 notice, please file the return. Please file the return. Please do not avoid the filing of the return. Because if you avoid the filing of the return, the 144 can be triggered. Please file the return. And after in the return, please file the right amount of the return. The right return. In the right return, there can be certain issues so that you can say that, yes, you have filed the return. And after this assessment will take place based on the return. And in the return, if you have explaining to something to explain, please explain in detail. Please submit all the document for the purpose of assessment so that there should not be any lack of document. And when there is no lack of document, there is no case of the rule 46A being invoked before the CIT appeal. Anything more, ma'am?
So we don't seem to have any more queries in the chat box.
Then there are the two conclusions on this one. Either they are satisfied with my reply, or either they are not satisfied with my reply.
I believe it's the former. They are truly satisfied, extremely satisfied with your deliberations.
So any question that because I'm not talking about anything theoretical, I'm talking about those things which I do it on the practical way. So it is the income tax. Generally, we try to handle on the first principle itself, and a lot of things that helps you and the first principle. And you have follow the first principle, disclose all the information before the assessing officer. You will be truly saved. The moment you try to not to disclose all the information, then it will create the problem.
I once again request all participants, if they have any queries related to any aspect of the assessment, kindly share them in the chat box.
Or if you can allow them to, or if you can allow them to speak, that will be better.
Perfect, sir.
If you have any hand which wants to speak, that will be better here, so that I will be able to understand the question more in detail with them, and understand not related to 148, anything on the issue of Income Tax Act. Any query.
If you have any queries, please raise your hand and we'll unmute you so that you can ask your query directly with sir.
I feel that it is office time, man. We are taking the seminar in the office time. People are more worried about their work here.
Hello. Hello.
Manojji, please go ahead and ask your query.
Good evening, sir. Hello, Sinha sir. Hello, Sinha sir.
Just hold on, sir. Yes, sir.
Sinha sir, one of the cases.
आवाज नहीं आ रही है सर आपकी?
Sir, आ रही है आवाज?
जी हाँ सर, अब आ रही है सर.
Sir, good evening, sir. In one of our cases, it is an old case, 148. The reason to believe the principal CIT has said, yes, I am satisfied. Only. And he has not written, it is a fit case for issue of notice. One the ground is this. Next, the reasons to believe, it is a 143(1) case. And in reasons to believe, he has said that that you have not fully and truly disclosed the details, which is applicable to 140 first provision to 147. How I can go? My matter is now before the ITAT. Could you give me some tips that I can?
Yes, sir. First of all, thank you, Manoj Garg साहब. आप हमसे काफी सीनियर हैं सर. So I'm really privileged to reply you. मेरी अपनी जितनी नॉलेज है उससे मैं आपको बताता हूँ सर.
Thank you.
केसेस है, ये आपका केस है जिसमें आपने रिटर्न फाइल किया. रिटर्न फाइल करने के बाद उस साल का 143(1) हुआ. यही है सर?
जी सर.
उस केस में 143(3) नहीं हुआ था.
जी सर.
और जब मोमेंट 143(3) नहीं हुआ था, इसका मतलब उसका असेसमेंट नहीं हुआ था एज पर द एक्सप्लेनेशन ऑफ द 147.
जी.
जैसे उसका असेसमेंट नहीं हुआ, इसका मतलब जो फर्स्ट प्रोवाइजो है वो उसके ऊपर एप्लीकेबल नहीं है. फर्स्ट प्रोवाइजो उसी केस में एप्लीकेबल होता है जिसका असेसमेंट इधर पहले 147 में हो चुका है या पहले 143(3) में हो चुका है.
ठीक है।
सिंस आपका केस जो है 147 में भी पहले नहीं हुआ है और 143 में भी नहीं हुआ है, इसका मतलब your case can be opened up to 6 years subject to that part here, approval part also. Now, the allegation is the SSC has not disclosed truly and fully all the material fact which was necessary for the purpose of assessment. यही लाइन लिखा हो गया होगा।
एक तो ये लाइन लिखी है और उसके बाद है ना जो जर्नल लाइन होती है that there is a accommodation entry, that's all.
That's it. The first point that you should read before the ITAT, saying that since this case was not under the 143.3, the SSC did not get any opportunity to disclose, get the pass through the assessment, and then nothing was asked by the assessment. There was no opportunity by the assessing officer to issue a notice under 143.3 or 142.1. So consequently, there was no opportunity to the SSC to disclose any fact before the assessing officer. So therefore, to the extent of this allegation does not sustain. Now, coming to the another part is that if this allegation does not sustain, it does not mean there is no escapement of the income. Find out what is the fact that was submitted earlier and find out on what ground he is trying to say that income has escaped now. If the income which was submitted, if the detail which was submitted earlier and it was claimed like this one, and there is no change of fact in between, then you can plead that since the assessment was accepted on the same set of fact, either under 143.1 or 143.3, on the same set of fact, if the assessing officer is trying to review, then it will lead to the change of opinion, and therefore the change of opinion is not permissible as per the law. The second line of the argument which the department will take, that on the same set of fact, a department has got certain information which is from the other source, and this information was not there when the 143.1 order was passed. So therefore, the 143.1 is not assessment. Yes, we know that it is not an assessment. 143.3 has not been done, but certain fact which has come to the knowledge of the assessing officer subsequently did suggest that this income was not a valid transaction, like in the case of penny stocks, like in the case of the Cascade 1668, where the allegations are generally that it is there you have filed ITR, and after that the assessing officer says that this transaction was not a genuine transaction. This certain credits which was appearing in the bank account was not a genuine credit here, and so therefore there can be something which can be chargeable to 68, and the 68, and they subsequently apply the 68, saying that this transaction was not a genuine transaction. The lender was not an, इसका identity नहीं था, उसका credit worthiness नहीं था, and therefore why the addition should not be made under 68, and they will make the addition under 68. आपकी आवाज नहीं आ रही सर, आप अपने आप को अनम्यूट करें सर।
सिन्हा साहब, मैं ये प्रॉब्लम मैं आपको एक डिस्टिंग्विश बताना चाह रहा था कि मुझे इसमें और सजेस्ट करें। रीजंस टू बिलीव के अंदर वो ये कहता है आई हैव ए रीजन टू बिलीव दैट द अकाउंट्स ऑफ I have reason to believe that on account of failure on the part of the assessee to disclose truly and fully all material facts necessary for the assessment, है ना, ये उसने अपने reasons to believe में लिखा है, reasons to believe में। फिर वो जो अप्रूवल जो होती है प्रिंसिपल कमिश्नर से, वहां पर ये कहता है the ITR has been filed as per the एक्सप्लेनेशन 2 क्लॉज बी, वहां पर वो कह रहा है कि 143(1) में रिटर्न फाइल हुई है विदाउट असेसमेंट। मैं समझा पा रहा हूं सर?
मैं समझ गया। आपका कहना है एओ ने जो रीजन टू बिलीव ड्राफ्ट किया उसमें एलिगेशन ये लगाया कि देयर इज अ फेलियर ऑन द पार्ट ऑफ द एसएससी टू सबमिट द ट्रूली एंड फुल्ली ऑल द मटेरियल फैक्ट नेसेसरी फॉर द पर्पस ऑफ
असेसमेंट। यस,
जब अप्रूवल के लिए जा रहा है
यस सर,
तो अप्रूवल डिफरेंट ग्राउंड पर हो रहा है।
डिफरेंट ग्राउंड पे हो रहा है।
अप्रूवल में वो ये बोल रहे हैं दैट दिस केस वाज फिट फॉर द डीम्ड एस्केपमेंट।
डीम्ड एस्केपमेंट,
यस, यही है ना आपका जो
yes,
है,
sir.
ये
This
यही
is the-
केस। दिस इज द फैक्ट हियर। दिस दे आर सेइंग दैट दिस फैक्ट इज द डीम्ड असेसमेंट एंड देयरफॉर द अप्रूवल इज गिवन। ठीक है ना, इसका मतलब ये हो गया कि असेसिंग ऑफिसर ने जिस ग्राउंड पर रीजन टू बिलीव जनरेट किया उस ग्राउंड पर तो अप्रूवल हुआ ही नहीं, और जिस ग्राउंड पर अप्रूवल हुआ वो तो कभी ग्राउंड रीजन टू बिलीव का था भी नहीं।
मतलब बिल्कुल सही कह रहे हैं। मैं उसको लिख नहीं पा रहा हूँ, ये मैं लिख नहीं पा रहा हूँ, ये मेरे दिमाग में आ रहा है, मैं क्योंकि मुझे सबमिट करना, मैं लिख नहीं पा रहा ये चीज। आपने बहुत अच्छा, जरा मुझे बिल्कुल ठीक कह रहे हैं, एक बार हल्का हल्का बताएं जिससे सो दैट आई कैन राइट। ये मैं सबमिशन बना रहा हूँ।
मैं आपको फिर बोलता हूँ, प्लीज नोट। द satisfaction has been recorded on a ground which was not the ground raised by the assessing officer in its region to believe.
Satisfaction recorded on a ground.
The satisfaction by the sanctioning authority has been given on a ground which was not part of the region to believe, or on which the assessing officer didn't sought any sanction, didn't sought any approval, and vice versa. The region to believe, the allegation was failure on the part of the SSC to submit the document which was not sanctioned by the approving authority.
ठीक है सर, मैं समझ गया। यही मैं ना जरा सा इन बिटवीन मुझे है ना कंफ्यूजन लग रहा था कि हाउ आई हैव टू ड्राफ्ट। थैंक यू, आपने मुझे थोड़ा सा एक तो सर ये वाला
नहीं सर, सबसे बड़ी बात है कि मैं अगर आपको 1% भी कन्विंस करने में सफलता पाई
सर, बिल्कुल आपने कन्विंस का
तो नेहा तो मैं नेहा मैडम का शुक्रगुजार हूं कि उन्होंने ये मौका मुझे दिया और मेरा ये वेबिनार सफल हो गया।
नहीं आई विश की सर और पुश थोड़ा सा, तो डेफिनेटली है ना विथ योर विशेस मैं उसको, और अब मैं समझ गया सारी चीजें कि जिससे कि क्योंकि मैंने बहुत सारी चीजें पढ़ी मगर ये वाला मुझे अभी तक इस केस लॉ नहीं मिला मुझे, ये वाला। आप मेरी बात समझ रहे हैं सर? ये वाइस वर्सा नहीं मिला मुझे, हमेशा ये जरूर मिला कि एसएससी 143(3) का है और एसएससी फेल टू मतलब रीजंस टू बिलीव में ट्रूली फुल्ली डिस्क्लोज नहीं लिखा, वो तो मिल गया, ये उल्टा नहीं मिला कभी।
बहुत अच्छी बात है सर। तो ये आपके लिए देन यू विल सेट द प्रेसिडेंट सर।
नहीं प्रेसिडेंट नहीं, बात हम तो डर रहे हैं ये जब भी है ना, मैं सोचा कि ये उल्टा कैसे चल रहा है, कहीं मैं गलत तो नहीं हूँ, मैं गलत तो नहीं हूँ।
नहीं, एकदम गलत नहीं है सर।
अच्छा,
एकदम गलत नहीं है, एकदम गलत नहीं है।
ओके
फॉलो योर प्रिंसिपल हियर। मैं बोलता हूँ आपको लॉ में डोंट फॉलो द केस लॉ सर। मैं अभी तक आपने देखा होगा मैंने बहुत कम केस लॉ,
हाँ केस लॉ बोले ही नहीं आपने, सही कह रहे हैं।
केस लॉ तो पहले बात की बात है सर, पहले तो लॉ डिस्कस कर ले, देन वी विल डिस्कस द केस लॉ। हम यहाँ पर केस लॉ डिस्कस करने नहीं बैठे, हम लॉ डिस्कस कर लेते हैं। लॉ अगर समझ गए तो केस लॉ तो अपने आप जनरेट हो जाएगा सर।
ठीक है सर, थैंक यू सर।
केस लॉ तो हम लोग बनाते हैं सर, केस लॉ कोई बाहर से बनकर नहीं आता है। लॉ तो स्टैट्यूट बनाता है, हमें लॉ डिस्कस करना है। केस लॉ तो बन जाएगा सर, हाई कोर्ट में सुप्रीम कोर्ट में केस लॉ बन जाएगा।
बहुत बढ़िया, थैंक यू वेरी मच सर, थैंक यू।
नेहा मैम और भी कोई है तो आप उनको जरूर आमंत्रण दीजिए। मेरे पास, आपके पास जितना भी टाइम है मैं उनको लाऊंगा। मैं सोचूंगा कि चलो 10 मिनट है हम लोग के पास, और भी
So meanwhile, there is a question. In case of appeal, 20% of disputed tax is to be paid. The query is that what constitutes disputed tax? Basic tax or basic tax with interest or basic tax, interest and penalties?
आप मैडम ऐसा कीजिए, जो जिन्होंने क्वेरी रेज किया उनको ये थोड़ा सा मौका दीजिए, मैं भी उनको देख पाऊँ, उनसे समझ पाऊँ मैं भी।
हेलो।
हाँ सर, आप ऑनलाइन हो जाइए सर और अपना कैमरा ऑन कर लीजिए सर।
हाँ जी सर, जस्ट अ सेकेंड। हेलो।
हाँ, नमस्कार सर। नमस्कार, नमस्कार अंशुल जी, नमस्कार सर।
हेलो।
हेलो, आपकी आवाज क्लियर नहीं आ रही है सर।
तो क्वेरी हैव टू पे 20%। हेलो।
हाँ सर, बताइए सर।
इज इट क्लियर नाउ? जी।
यस सर, यस सर।
जैसे हम अपील फाइल करते हैं तो इट सेज यू हैव टू पे 20% ऑफ द डिस्प्यूटेड टैक्स। सो लॉ में ऐसा लिखा नहीं हुआ है कि डिस्प्यूटेड टैक्स की डेफिनेशन क्या है। लाइक बेसिक टैक्स, इंटरेस्ट प्लस पेनल्टी टुगेदर इट कंस्टिट्यूट्स बेसिक disputed tax, or only basic amount
ओनली बेसिक अमाउंट सर।
tax amount equal to disputed tax? Okay.
नो, ओनली
Because
बेसिक।
logic, अगर वैसे टैक्स इसमें मैं okay, thank you so much.
एनीवन और कोई है क्वेश्चन तो वही पूछ लिया अंशुल जी।
Query I had like जो उसमें असेसी है उनको जिनको
हेलो।
हेलो।
हाँ जी सर।
हाँ सर, असेसी है उनकी डेथ हो गई है, तो एज एन असेसी रिप्रेजेंटेटिव वी आर फाइलिंग एन अपील अंडर फॉर्म 35। सो उस केस में असेसी जैसे अपेलेट में नेम आता है ना कि अपील फाइल्ड बाय दिस पर्सन। सो उसमें बेसिक इंफॉर्मेशन में ऑथराइज जो ऑथराइज सिग्नेटरी है या ऑथराइज रिप्रेजेंटेटिव है उनका नाम लिख के आ रहा है। कहीं पे भी फॉर्म में जो अपेलेट थे, जो ओरिजिनल जिनकी डेथ हो गई, उनका नाम कहीं नहीं लिख कर आया। सो विल दिस अपील बी वैलिड?
बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज है सर ये। आपका कहना है कि जो असेसमेंट ऑर्डर पास हुआ, ऑल्दो असेसमेंट ऑर्डर में जो इनकम जो एसेस हुई वो असेसमेंट तो डिसीज्ड पर्सन का है, बट जो असेसमेंट ऑर्डर आया है दैट इज इन द नेम ऑफ द अनदर पर्सन। यही आपका कहना है ना? ये जो बहुत सारे लॉ है इसके ऊपर, दिस issue is not a simpler issue. First, the issue is that how to challenge this type of assessment order. The law says a person cannot be assessed after his death. There cannot be assessment of a dead person. This means the person can be assessed till the time of his life. उस साल में पहले ये पता कीजिए कि उस साल में वो कितने दिन के लिए अलाइव थे, या उस साल में वो एक भी दिन अलाइव नहीं थे। द फर्स्ट सिचुएशन है सट्टे के केस, अगर वो कुछ दिन के लिए अलाइव थे तब अप टू द डेट ऑफ हिज डेथ ही विल बी असेस्ड, एंड आफ्टर हिज डेथ his legal representative will be assessed. If the legal representative, if there is no legal representative, or if the legal representative is not able to bring to the knowledge, then सारा इनकम जो है एलआर के हाथ में टैक्सेबल होगा। Then the issue arise, आपने बोला ऑथराइज रिप्रेजेंटेटिव। Authorized representative is not this is not the case of authorized representative. जो मुझे लगता है कि आपका केस है कि जो इंडिविजुअल एसएससी जिनका डेथ हो गई है, the moment it has been death, died, then the assessment should take place on the legal representative, and the legal representative should be liable to the extent of the estate being passed through the LR in the same manner as it would have been not passed, and at the same manner to the extent of the live person. Section 159 will be there. 159 or 151 will be there. 151 will be there. ये section में बहुत help करेगा. So first of all, इस केस में अपील फाइल करने से पहले please be a legal representative of that person. And legal representative का कुछ document होते हैं that who can be the legal representative. Whether legal representative वही होगा जिसको कोर्ट के थ्रू एक सर्टिफिकेट मिलता है that you are the legal representative. If you are the legal representative of the court here, so आप अपने पोर्टल पे जाइए और एज ए लीगल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव करके आप उसको लिंक कीजिए उस एसएससी को जिसके पैन पर असेसमेंट ऑर्डर आया है, और उसके बाद असेसमेंट जो फाइल होगी बाय लीगल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव फाइल होगी, but the main SSC will be the deceased person. So if Mr. A was the deceased person, so the assessment will be Mr. A versus appeal will be Mr. A versus ITO through its legal representative. In the assessment, in the appeal, you can take one of the point that the SSC was no more alive during the assessment year, and therefore this assessment order is in nullity because there cannot be assessment to a dead person. But with the recent changes, one thing is coming, that have you informed to the department that this SSC is no more? And in the case of when the SSC is no more, whether how the state, like in the case of the Mahagun cases, the department the Supreme Court come heavily on the SSC, saying that since you didn't inform to the department that you have been merged with the another entity, so therefore the notice which has been issued to you was valid. This means the onus has been shifted to the person, saying that you have to inform to the department, saying that this person is no more, and therefore the assessment should not take place here. You can, so there's another set of litigation will arise in this case here. You can go through, there are few of the judgment. You can also go through the judgment of the Mahagun, where the Supreme Court has given the emphasis that the information by the SSC to the assessing officer was a critical point, and in the case of the Maruti, SSC has informed to the assessing officer, but in the case of Mahagun, SSC has not informed to the assessing officer for the assessment year 2006-07. So therefore, the Mahagun case went against the SSC, and the Maruti case was in favor of the SSC. Therefore, the responsibility has been cast upon the SSC to inform to the department, saying that I have merged with this person. Whether the same law can apply on a live person, that the LR has to represent, or LR has to inform that the SSC is now a deceased SSC. SSC is no more, and therefore the assessment should take place in the hands of the LR, not in the hands of the deceased person. So this type of argument will come. So please go through the law, and after that you can develop your arguments here. I hope that I have clarified you in much detail here. Neha ma'am.
सर हेलो
हेलो।
हाँ सर सर
हाँ, और भी है मैम?
Yes,
हेलो
sir.
हेलो।
हाँ सर
हाँ, अपना कैमरा ऑन कर लिए सर, बताइए।
ओके एक मिनट यस सर
यस
हेलो
सर, यस
हाँ
सर, दिलीप। हाँ सर,
हाँ
दिलीप
जी
कुमार जी, दिलीप कुमार
हाँ
जी।
जी हाँ जी हाँ जी हाँ सर एक नोटिस इश्यू हुआ है 148 में
हाँ।
और वो भी जून 21 में
हाँ।
और उनका और उसके बाद नोटिस 142 में भी आ गया है नोटिस
हम्म।
तो इसका रिप्लाई क्या करें फिर
आप इसका रिप्लाई ऐसा कीजिए कि जो नोटिस इस
ओरिजिनल रिटर्न फाइल किया है 139(1) में फाइल किया हुआ है और 148 का रिटर्न फाइल बाकी है।
ठीक है, आप ऐसा, ये कौन सा असेसमेंट ईयर है?
14-15 और एक 17-18 दोनों का है
ठीक है,
असेसमेंट।
आप ऐसा रिप्लाई कीजिए इसका, द नोटिस विच हैज बीन इशूड आफ्टर 1st of April 2021 is not valid because it has not been issued as per the law enacted from Finance Act 2021. The Delhi High Court, in the case of the Manmohan Kohli versus Assistant Commissioner of Income Tax Act, has quashed all the 148 notices which has been issued post 1st April 2021 on the ground that these notices are not valid as per the amended law. So therefore, the notice under 148 issued in this case is not valid and you are requested to drop the proceeding under 147. Clear?
यस सर ओके सर
यस नेहा मैम, और भी कोई है? थैंक यू दिलीप कुमार जी, कम से कम आपने यहाँ पर क्वेश्चन पूछने के लिए कम से कम आप 2 घंटे हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए तो थे। हाँ
जी
हाँ। यस नेहा मैम, और भी कोई है तो मैं रिप्लाई कर सकता हूँ?
I don't see any more questions, sir. Anyone has any more questions? Please, can you just raise your hand?
कोई बात नहीं, चलिए।
I think, sir, your methodology of explaining things makes things so clear that probably all their queries have already been answered.
I don't know. I don't know. कोई बात नहीं। मैंने तो अपनी तरफ से छोटी सी कोशिश की है। अगर मेरे कोशिश से अगर 2 या 3 आदमी को भी फायदा हो जाता है तो सफल हो जाता है हमारी कोशिश, है ना?
Sir, we don't have any more queries.
नो इशू मैम। तो कंक्लूड किया जाए सेशन को?
Sir, please. I would give my heartfelt thanks to Prakash sir for sparing his valuable time on a working day, office hours, and explaining all the finer nuances of reassessment law, and very patiently taking each and every query that we received during this session. So thank you so much for your presence today.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity, ma'am.
And thank you all of us, all of you also, for joining us today. And just to remind you that tomorrow, the third session in the series on reassessment would be on drafting of reply and furnishing of submission in case of reassessment proceedings. Please do join for that session at 5 p.m. tomorrow.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.